Well now, it's September 4, mid-afternoon. I got a little bit of downtime here. And got some stuff started in the kitchen and the animals been fed. And I'm going to start assembling a project here and talking while I do it. And this project is called a serpent, by the way. Okay, a serpent, by the way. And this is going to be talking about the human condition. You remember that song by Kenny Rogers in the first edition? I just checked in to see what condition my condition is in. Okay.
Straight up, downtown, somewhere. Found in to see what condition my condition. Said I just dive in to see what condition my condition is in. Yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah.
We all have a condition, okay? And I think of that condition as various levels of fallenness, okay? Both physical and mental and spiritual. And so the under theme here is elective Nephilism, in the same way that a person might get a nose operation, okay, or a butt enlargement operation. These are elective surgeries. They have nothing to do with life or death, but only really vanity, you see. So I'm thinking of the manipulation of one's DNA as being on the horizon today. I mean, I've been hearing about it for 30 years myself. And, you know, designer babies and all of that business. Well, I'm going to call that elective Nephilism, okay? In other words, the decision not to be happy with the container you were born into for whatever reason, but wishing to have a better container now, okay? Now, Christian people will tell you, you're going to get the good container, but you can't get it at the mall. Takes longer. That's a long game thing. So today we're going to talk about elective Nephilism, but the name of the video is a huge serpent, by the way. Okay? And where does this come from? Well, we have all kinds of scripture that talks about Babylon, Mystery Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, the harlot that rides on a beast, and all of these wonderful, picturesque identifiers for things that are not good for you, okay? And there's this one gentleman, his name's Dave Cull. He's a landscaper. He's probably pretty good at it because he's really good at studying up on stuff that has to do with the perplexities of one's scripture as you get close to the skinny end of the funnel, which I think we are all doing right now in this time of transformation and change on Earth, all the way up to the sun, all right? And coming at us from the other direction, too. It's just absolutely crazy. Three-Eye Atlas, etc. And, you know, Dave Cull's the kind of guy that can pop in there and say, hey, check out this parade that they do in London every year with these huge, you know, we have the inflatables, Macy Days Parade in here. these giant Gog and Magog figures in an annual parade. Okay, so in our country, we honor, Disney characters and Santa Claus and, whatever the big Pixar movie is that year. But over in England, there's parades all over the place. People like walking in lines, and they have this historic, traditional practice that apparently whatever Judeo-Christian scholars happen to reside in that country, if they've raised a hue and cry about this is kind of not cool, Anglican Church, we're talking to you. Well, anyways, Dave Cole's the kind of guy that finds something like that. He's a trip. And I'm also going to be culling here a little bit from a really cool channel, which has opened so many doors for me in terms of understanding Old Testament stuff all the way up to the present through an Edomite lens. Okay, and when we talk about an Edomite lens, what does that mean? Well, the Judeo-Christian lens is one that would come from Jacob, okay, in that whole Abrahamic line that eventually leads, to all the important people in the Bible, right up to Jesus being born. Okay, that would be the Jacobian lens, but the Edomite lens comes from his brother, his older brother, by the way, Esau, who had red hair, like Van Morrison and Bette Midler. And the Edomites resided all over the Arabian Peninsula and what later became, Persia, and all up into Syria and over to Jordan, and not sure about Lebanon, and up further north from there, into the various places that have the Stan thing going on the end of the country, Kyrgyzstan. These are places where you really have to be able to understand it through that Edomite lens, because it's an entirely different cultural perspective, entirely different mythological and historical details that the Western world has no idea about. We just weren't taught this stuff, nor took classes in it. Okay? Unless you were born into a Middle Eastern family and heard about this stuff through word of mouth in your family, you didn't hear it in school. But I'm sure that everybody that lives there hears it, just like we hear about George Washington. I cannot tell a lie. Which is bullshit. But what I've learned about that part of the world, basically being pointed at it by people like Dave Cull, but then I go trying to find out and I land on channels like Mysterious Middle East. Oh my gosh. Here's somebody that really understands and is from what we now refer to as the Islamic Middle East. Brilliant person. What a wonderful mind. Very picturesque. And he unpacks the mythologies and histories and beliefs and changing beliefs and various battles and who vanquished who and all of this stuff going all the way back. And by going through Islamic scripture, he too can take somebody who would like to know all the way back to creation and even before creation through the Edomite lens. Oh, it's an education for me. And I can see, after learning some of this stuff, that H.P. Lovecraft had read this stuff. He absolutely read this stuff. Okay? Oh my word, it's amazing. And Poe, for sure. Jules Verne. Definitely H.G. Wells. I'm calling this a serpent, by the way. So my images come from Dave Cull's channel. and they also come from mysterious Middle East. All right, I gotta make sure somewhere here I've got. Oh yes, and also I might add, Kurt Landry Ministries. Kurt Landry was very helpful to me just a few days ago in unpacking the meaning of the Hebrew year 5786, which we are in. Okay, and the meaning and warnings that accompany what the rabbinic scholars would have to say about that Hebrew year. They've got a lot to say about all of them, and some of them are major big bumps on the graph, as it were. But the Kurt Landry Ministries, Mysterious Middle East, and Dave Cull's channel, great stuff. Okay? All right, I'm going to pause my audio for a moment in order to load some images.
Believed by some to be intentionally hidden by the museum. It is noteworthy that in a detailed report, De Cesare mentions that among the 7,000 remaining fragments, the handful of elongated skulls discovered among them are inconsistent with those found worldwide. Typically, those Aboriginal communities and ancient tribes that practiced cranial deformation did not exhibit the same attributes as those found beneath Malta. De Cesare states that if the remains of the altered individuals were assembled into a complete skeletal form, they'd have the look of a man with a reptile bearing, and that this morphological appearance, although natural, is attributed to their worship of the ancient entity Astarte. They were in essence her serpent priests. As an explanation for their deformed look, he first explains that Malta was a center for medicinal magic, based around the worship of this entity. Since, classically speaking, snakes have always been associated with the subterranean world, a hippodrome dedicated to this serpent goddess was the right place for a group defined as the serpent priests to exist. BC. And this is where it gets both interesting and terrifying, especially if you don't like horror of the body kind. He states,
perhaps the skulls found in the Hypogeum and examined during our visit to Malta belonged indeed to these priests. As mentioned before, they present an accentuated dolichocephalus, which is particularly the center of our analysis. The long head and drawn features must have given a serpent-like appearance, stretching the eyes and skin. Lacking the lower part of the exhibit, we can only speculate, but the hypothesis can't be far from reality, a reality worsened by the fact that such deformities certainly created walking problems, forcing him to slither. This must have certainly caused the man terrible agony since infancy, but probably enhanced visions that were considered as being proof of a bond with the goddess.
in other words, this extreme binding caused extensive physical deformations from head to toe, turning a regular human into something that looks like a lizard-shaped beast. The pain caused by this binding in turn gave these priests a transcendental or heightened sense of reality, allowing them to commune with this.
This is it.
Let me
No,
see.
don't touch it. It's dangerous. It opens doors.
What kind of doors?
Doors to the pleasures of heaven or hell. I didn't care which. I thought I'd gone to the limits. I hadn't. The Cenobites gave me an experience beyond the limits. Pain and pleasure, indivisible.
Serpent deity. But De Cesare's analysis doesn't end here. Even though he is not a fringe theorist, he raises questions that many believers in the arcane would also raise, like, were these serpent priests even from Malta? Others would suggest that these priests could be from an inner earth, outer space, or an entirely different reality altogether. Furthermore, although De Cesare doesn't mention Iraq beyond it being a hub for the serpent priests, and we are unsure if he mentions it elsewhere. We can't help but draw our own connections between Malta's skulls and the unsolved mystery surrounding the 20th century discovery of several 7,000-year-old artifacts which appear to represent humanoid figures with reptile features. Coincidentally, these figurines also date back to the Ubaid period. Until this day, academics and historians have yet to come to a consensus on their meaning. Could they possibly be miniature representations of these priests?
The Ubaid lizard men figurines, found in archaeological sites in southern Iraq, may have held religious or cultural significance, possibly representing deities or mythological beings worshipped at that time. Dated to around 4,500 BC, these two and others found at neighboring sites are known as lizard figurines due to their appearance.
So to summarize, it could be circumstantial and coincidental, but evidence of lizard-like hominids with elongated skulls connected to various pan-regional deities have been unearthed almost globally, all dating back to the Ubaid period. The ritualistic condition of his remains is extremely noteworthy. While some point their fingers at wild animals and insects as the cause for its condition, while others blame a global market that steals and distributes the insides of people. Given Malta's history and the dark past haunting its catacombs, be it real or fictional, we must consider a hypothetical link between the way Mansholt was discovered and dark practices found in ancient Canaanite and Carthaginian cultures. Some historians believe the young were offered to the idol Baal through burning, which admittedly is vastly different from organ removal. However, what matters here is how modern people may choose to reenact ancient practices. In the modern age, Baal and even his daughters have been linked to such practices. Dr. Josephine Quinn, a researcher and faculty member of Oxford, has established that sacrifices occurred on Malta. Her research links the islands with the Carthaginians, who in turn are linked to the Phoenicians, originating from the Canaanites. Furthermore, Andrew Cross of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem published a paper referencing a Phoenician translation into Latin of a stone slab from Carthaginian Malta that speaks of performing ritualized blood letting in the dark, implying that such dark activities were literally performed in dark locations underground. Here, Andrew Cross also identifies the name of Baal's consort, an entity called Tanit. This being was known by a variety of names across many regions, the oldest name being Astarte. Cross states that this deity was associated with fertility, as we have already mentioned, and were chthonic, meaning they belonged to the underworld. Ancient origins, using Quinn and Cross as context for Mansholt's case, states that the island was likely a hub for mass ritualized offerings. Sometimes, underground pipes or channels above ground were constructed to funnel sacrificial blood to these underworld deities, like Astarte. Ergo, not all rituals to these beings demanded fire. Now, while linking the Mansholt case with ancient Canaanite and Carthaginian occultism might be a stretch due to the ritual inconsistencies mentioned, the proximity between the catacombs of Rabat and the Saflieni hypogeum may not be entirely coincidental, given that underground tunnels are believed to run the entire global organizations. This takes us to an ancient cult that seemingly developed around the worship of humanoid lizards. While many believe in Jessup's story, drawing faith-based connections between it and the biblical Nephilim giants, most are unaware of official government-sponsored research that has yielded results that are just as mysterious. But before we explore those results, we first have to jump back several decades to Tunisia, 1907, and the mysterious death of a Jesuit priest. This priest, a Father Emmanuel Magri, was not only one of the first senior academics to officially study the hypogeum, but it was his research that laid the initial groundwork for all what we know about these catacombs today. But this research was also controversial. in addition to the well-publicized discovery of 7,000 skeletal pieces, a notable portion of which possessed elongated skulls that look non-human. His work also strongly suggested that elements from Maltese mythology concerning the supernatural existence of giants from the island's distant past may actually be true. It has been speculated that he was exiled there because he may have ruffled some feathers in London following controversial reports he submitted to the British Museum, the authority who oversaw the affairs of the Maltese Valletta Museum, due to mentioning a potential supernatural component definitely existing within the hypogeum. It is believed that because he was a well-renowned archaeologist, his evidence could have theoretically developed into a serious challenge for the scientific establishment of the early 1900s, that not only connects them to a supernatural Mesopotamian snake cult stemming from ancient Kurdistan, but also potential alien or extra-dimensional involvement within the Levant and Mediterranean region. This research draws links to pagan demonology and a deity named Astarte, who, according to archaeologist Vittorio di Cesare, was a snake-faced goddess worshipped across the central and eastern Mediterranean. And this entity, or its worshippers, we will find, may not only be indirectly responsible for the disappearance of that elementary class, but also the mysterious demise of a German tourist in 2019 near to one of Malta's other catacombs known as the Realm of the Dead. But before we discuss how, we first need to travel to Gaza 2022 and a landmark discovery of the statue of an ancient deity tenuously connected to a serpent cult and a mysterious ancient group of hierophants known as the Serpent Priests. In April 2022, in Khan Younis, a once beautiful city on the Mediterranean coast, now gone, a farmer, Nidal Abu Aid, discovered a 4,500-year-old limestone sculpture while tending his fields east of the city. In a corner of the Levant, known for strange artifacts, what made Nidal's discovery unique was its connection to ancient lore that not only theoretically dates back to the birth of human civilization, but also involves a literal ancient cosmic alien horror, encompassing much of the Levant, including Syria and Lebanon, parts of Arabia, specifically Jordan and the northern edges of Saudi, as well as ancient Mesopotamia as far east as Kurdistan, and the western edges of the Mediterranean, spanning from Egypt to Spain. The Palestinian discovery appears to be linked to an ancient belief system centered around the worship of deities that are either intelligent reptiles or intimately connected to such reptiles. As we will show, theoretically, this belief system seems to be rooted in scientific, supernatural, and religious traditions that may even still be active today. Questions. Here, we can draw direct connections between Astarte, Anat, and their roles as fertility deities, and studies concerning evidence of the embryonic development of humans and reptiles, carved into the sands by the Neolithic peoples of the Arabian Peninsula through vast geoglyphic ruins thousands of years ago. We would personally like to run with the idea that these communities had individuals within them that had advanced scientific knowledge of human biology, impossible for that time. However, others suggest aliens, otherwise known as paleoastronautics.
Esas ruinas son mapas de embriones en desarrollo de varias especies. Esas ruinas que estáis viendo ahí solo se pueden ver desde el espacio.
Meet Virtudes Pontes Sanchez, a seasoned archaeologist with 28 years of experience. At the end of 2014, she stumbled upon something extraordinary while reading a magazine on Middle Eastern archaeology and geoglyphs. The images she saw, well, they weren't just stones or ancient artifacts. No, Virtudes recognized them instantly as something much more profound: embryos. And if that was not anomalous enough, not just normal embryos, but a set of human and lizard embryos, large-scale motifs scattered across ancient Arabia's various desert landscapes. At ground level, archaeologists could only see clusters of rocks, but from above. From the vantage point of satellites and drones, the true nature of these formations is revealed. Cellular, embryonic, and biological representations, telling a story that has been hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. To be certain on what she was seeing, Vertude spent months buried in the libraries of various biology faculties to verify her groundbreaking thesis. And then, on January 20th, 2016, she took to social media, seeking the expertise of biologists worldwide. Among them was Santi Prado, who played a crucial role in gathering a team of scientists to support her claims. By mid-2018, her and her team were engaging with experts globally via emails, video conferences, and endless discussions. And by 2020, they had a positive response from the Jordanian embassy itself. For those who don't know, a geoglyph is a large design or motif created on the ground, typically made by arranging stones or by carvings into the earth. These designs are often so large that they can only be fully appreciated from an aerial view. So what do the Jordanian geoglyphs represent? Are they connected to ancient scriptures, apocrypha, mythology, or legends from the region? Resembling embryonic forms, they might be seen as evidence of ancient, advanced knowledge and possible extraterrestrial influence. Right now, work is undergoing to figure this out, as millions of stones scattered across Syria, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia could all be puzzle pieces to a giant mystery.
BHH and NC here, spectating and speculating about finding grace in America in these times. Welcome aboard.